All right, let's get this started. Today's video really saddens me that it needs to be made. I'm going to talk about the Constitution of the United States and what the different articles are, what it means, how it works. And I got to say, everybody in this nation should understand our Constitution. You should have read it multiple times. So many people have told me over the years, it's long, it's hard to understand. There's so much to it. You really need to dedicate a ton of time to understanding and reading the Constitution. Well, you really don't. This is a pocket Constitution. I carry this around with me. It's not a Cliff Notes or abridged version or anything like that. The complete Constitution is in here, including an introduction, pieces from George Washington's Farewell to the Nation, all the amendments, the Declaration of Independence, and a bunch of other informational pieces on the Constitution. So in and of itself, the Constitution is a little more than half of this pamphlet. So not hard to understand. But, don't take my word for it. Let's go to one of our best and brightest constitutional scholars and see what she has to say about the branches of government and what they are.
Is that should we, and if we work our butts off to make sure that we take back all three chambers of Congress, all three chambers of government, the presidency, the Senate, and the House in 2020.
All right. This is an adult human female that was elected by other adults in this country to represent us in the House of Representatives from the state of New York. The profound lack of understanding for the Constitution, what it is and what it means, is frightening. Okay, first, not three chambers of government, three co-equal branches of government. And the three branches are Congress, which consists of the House and Senate, the President, and then the Supreme Court. Three branches, three co-equal branches. So let's dive into this. This is from the National Archives. This is free. This is easy for everybody to get if you don't have a little pamphlet. So just read through it. It's simple. We start off. This is the preamble to the Constitution, probably one of the most famous sections of any piece of literature. More people have probably heard this than pieces of the Bible at this point. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States of America. Okay? That's actually, again, easy to understand. This is the why. This is why the Constitution exists. So let's dive into this, shall we? Article 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and House of Representatives. Okay, the people that make the laws are Congress, the House, and the Senate. The House is the lower house, the Senate is the upper house. The Senate consists of 2 senators per state. The House consists of representatives based on the population of each state. Okay, not complex. And then the whole section, all the different sections of Article 1 of the Constitution explain congressional powers. I mean, like right here, 2 senators from each state, and their terms are 6 years. Each senator has 1 vote. Okay, and then it just goes through and tells you specifically what the roles, the rights of the Congress are, how they work. I mean, Section 8 even breaks it down and says, the Congress can levy taxes to pay for these things. And it breaks out what it is that they can pay for. Again, really simple stuff. All right, Article 2 of the Constitution. The executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America. He shall hold his office during a term of 4 years, and together with the Vice President chosen for the same term be elected as follows. Goes down and tells you how we elect a president. This is what's referred to as the Electoral College. each state has a certain number of electors based on their population, and the states cast their electoral votes, and that determines who becomes president. Now, the Electoral College is not because of racism, and it's not because of any of the other ridiculous things I've heard over the years about the Electoral College. It is designed specifically so that smaller states have power. If we didn't do that, the way the power structure would be broken down is certain states with higher populations would make all of the decisions for the rest of the states. And the cornerstone of the Constitution really came from Thomas Jefferson, and it was majority rights, majority wins, minority rights are protected. That's the most important piece of this Constitution, is that we take votes, the majority of the votes win, but part of the voting system is we protect the rights of the minority. So at some points, certain peoples, certain political parties are in the majority, in the minority. It switches back and forth fairly regularly in our country. All right. So the Electoral College is there to protect the rights of the smaller states. And now, the funny thing is, when the Constitution was written, some of the states that now have the higher populations had lower populations than other states at the time. So, people are complaining about the Electoral College from some of these states with high populations, but when the Constitution was ratified, they would have been in that minority. So their rights were protected just like everybody else's. All right, Article 3. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. All right, one Supreme Court. That's it. They are the highest court. Every law that comes before Congress, that Congress passes and the president signs, all of those can be judged and determined to be constitutional or unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. Now, this line, such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. Currently in our system, those inferior courts are the district courts, the circuit courts, the state courts. All of those courts have been put into place because the Supreme Court cannot hear every case, whether or not it's constitutionality, whether or not it's, whatever the subject matter of a law or dispute may be. So the Supreme Court was established to hear the laws, the appeals to the laws that are brought before them. And they're the final word. If the Supreme Court says, nope, this is unconstitutional, then that's it. It's unconstitutional. The other two branches of government, Article 1 and Article 2, establish time limits for the term of the president and for the term of the Congress. So Congress has, in the House, the term is a 2-year term. The Senate is 6 years. The president is 4 years. The Senate rotates. So every 2 years, 1/3 of the Senate comes up for re-election. That way, if the people get thoroughly annoyed with Congress, they can wipe out all of the House of Representatives in one election cycle, but 2/3 of the Senate would have to stay. And the reason for that is to provide stability and continuance of governance if the people decided to vote everybody out. It's kind of a good system. It's a smart way to do things. I mean, this was a well thought out document, and it really makes a lot of sense as you go into it. So the Supreme Court, final word, the smaller courts, lower courts, inferior courts, all of them see and hear cases. And then if somebody appeals it, then it can work its way all the way up to the Supreme Court. That's the way that works. All right, Article 4. This is what's referred to as the states' rights section or article of the Constitution. This really outlines the power of the states. And basically, if something is not outlined in federal law, the states get to make their own laws and their own determinations as to whether or not something's going to be legal or illegal, or something is going to happen or not happen. So again, the states are supposed to be where the power is for daily life, and the federal government is only supposed to control the larger things like a navy, like levying taxes for the federal government, treaties for the nation, things like that. A lot of the laws we have now on the books, these multiple 1,000-page laws, are really out of line with what the Constitution really intended. All of those laws, for the most part, should be at the state level. Okay, Article 5. This is probably the single greatest part of the Constitution, and it's also probably the scariest part of the Constitution. So the reason I say that is an Article 5 convention is a convention of states. And what that is and what that means is, if as a nation we decide that the Constitution needs to be rewritten, we can get together as states and as a federal government and rewrite the Constitution itself. That's also why it's really scary, because if we do have a convention of states and we have a group come in who is able to push forward some really bad ideas, we could be in serious trouble. The easy way to amend the Constitution is through the amendment process. The amendments are simply specific items that are laid out so that we can make determinations on smaller things. One of the stranger ones was the prohibition of alcohol. Okay. Why that needed to be done on a federal level, I don't know. I'm sure it was justified under interstate commerce, which is that is a part of the Constitution that has really been bastardized. The Interstate Commerce Clause basically says that anything going from one state to the other, that can be regulated by interstate commerce, which is the purview of the federal government. So a lot of the laws that we have on the books that the federal government makes and imposes and enforces are all based on that single line of interstate commerce. So things like regulations on firearms and firearm devices, suppressors, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, machine guns, all of those sorts of things are federal laws. But since the sale and transfer of those items goes from one state to the other, the federal government has decided that they have jurisdiction over those things under the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Constitution. So, yeah, we have some crazy stuff going on there. Article 6, this really gets into the details of what I was just talking about. This is a supremacy clause, and it talks about what the federal government has power to do, its jurisdiction and its domain over the nation. And yeah, we've gone way beyond what we should have. The rights of the people to enforce and make laws should be on the state level. We should not have federal law enforcement. We should not have a bunch of the federal agencies that we have. You go to Washington, D.C., and the place is covered in federal buildings for agencies. You have no idea what they're for. Most people don't. And we're making laws and we're creating agencies to make things confusing. So let's roll on. Article 7. Article 7 is not something that really affects our lives anymore. This is the ratification of the Constitution. And it tells us how the ratification process went and who the delegates are from the colonies and who they were who signed the document to ratify the Constitution. So really, that's it in a nutshell. That's the Constitution. It is not complex. Anybody who represents our nation should understand very, very clearly that the Constitution is simple. There are not three chambers of government. There are three branches of government. The three branches are Congress, the President, the Supreme Court, and Congress is broken down into the House of Representatives and the Senate. It's that simple. So anybody who can read at a third grade reading level should be able to sit down and read through this in a little over an hour. And and be able to understand it fairly well. But anyway, that's what it is. So our next video will be on the amendments to the Constitution and what they mean. That's going to be a fun one. So we'll see you next time.